Chapter 43. The Mystery. That sounds very fulfilling. Which story impressed you the most? I asked. The most impressive story is certainly the one that involved me. And one where you played a part as well, Kieran said and began to tell the story. One day, I was preparing a bar of iron to forge a new knife. When I picked it up, an image of a large bright fireball appeared in my mind. I was startled, so I put down the iron bar immediately. I tried to figure out what it could mean, but I had no idea. I was curious to know more, so I picked it up again and began to work on it. During the process of putting the iron bar on the fire, hammering and shaping it, polishing and sharpening it, I could see images of evil, slaughter, and brutality. I heard screams, explosions, and loud noises of machinery. I suffered a lot while I was working on that knife, and eventually felt very sad and depressed. But I patiently continued to work on it until completion. That night, I was so exhausted that I slept like a log. The next morning, I was still scared by what I had seen the previous day, and it took me a long time to decide whether I should continue to work on the handle and the sheath. But as I was also curious to know how the story would end, I decided to examine the pile of wood that I had collected before. Among all the pieces of wood, I saw one that I thought would match the blade nicely. But strangely enough, when I picked it up, I felt sheer happiness and joy like I have never felt before. This one felt like it was mine. While cutting and trimming that piece of wood, I saw an image of a pretty little girl running happily in the meadow. I heard her laughter all the time and I kept smiling while I worked. It was the exact opposite of what I had experienced the previous day. When my work was done, I reflected on everything that I had experienced and tried to piece all the scenes together to figure out what they were trying to tell me. With every other knife, I could always guess how the story began, unfolded, and ended, but this knife completely confused me. I couldn't connect the scenes and I didn't understand how these extremely opposite stories were related. One day, a few hundred years later, I heard about a person who had come to our planet in a similar way like you. He had been traveling in his flying vehicle and was going to live in our city. On that day, I wasn't very keen to know more about this visitor. I only knew that he had arrived and that he had nothing to do with my mission. That was until he came to visit me one day. When we met, I let him choose a knife and I was surprised that he chose the mysterious one. When I looked into his mind using telepathy, I suddenly realized why I had seen those pictures of devastation and slaughter, and heard those machinery noises. I finally found out the significance of that story that has been occupying my thoughts over the last centuries. He used to be a soldier, battling in one of the most destructive war of Gaia. But due to the decision of the highly evolved beings, he was able to escape from that historical episode. However, I also wondered about the meaning of the happy images that appeared while I was making the handle and the sheath, so I explored his future life. After that, I understood everything. That man would be the love of my daughter. And the most joyous thing was that he would be the man in her life who would help her bear my little granddaughter, Kaharu, the girl next to you. And the story of Kaharu, my only beloved granddaughter, is the story now connected to you, Kieran concluded.